Primitive, helpless, clumsy. Charlie Chaplin dressed as a comic waiter in dicky and tail coat. That's the traditional view of the penguin. A very backward bird indeed. One that can't even fly and sometimes can't walk upright. When it tries to do so, it can only waddle. The picture is very far from the truth. What follows aims to put the record straight. It's all entirely in praise of penguins. Helpless? To start with, ask yourself how many seabirds, or for that matter, how many aquatic mammals, could survive in this sort of situation. Yet these chin-strapped penguins bounce like rubber balls in surf that would kill you or I. With their strengthened rib cages and insulating layers of fat, they can withstand the worst the surf on Deception Island in the sub-Antarctic can do to them. Some of the first penguins ever seen and recorded by a white man were these in Patagonia. They're called Magellan penguins, after the great Portuguese navigator Ferdinand Magellan, who voyaged to South America in 1521. Magellan described them as geese. Seeing them walk upright, it's hard to imagine why. But he and his crew probably first sighted them swimming like this. A more understandable confusion came later. In the early 1600s, sailors called this flightless bird, which they found in the North Atlantic, a penguin. The great auk, which became extinct in 1844 due to persecution, was a member of a quite different family, the Alcidae, to which belong guillemots and puffins. The auks carry out the role of penguins in northern waters and look rather similar. People don't always realize that there aren't any penguins in northern waters. All 18 species live in the southern hemisphere. Only 2, the Adelies and the Emperors, are true Antarctic penguins. The remainder, with one exception, nest almost entirely on coasts and islands between the Tropic of Capricorn and the Antarctic Circle. The exception is the Galapagos penguin on the equator. But the Galapagos species relies on the constant stream of cold water from the Humboldt Current. Penguins come in several sizes and a variety of head markings. This is the Magellan. The chin strap, the rockhopper, looking as though it wishes it could fly, the erect crested penguin, the Gen 2 with distinctive white headband, the northernmost species from the Galapagos Islands, the Adelie from the Antarctic, basic model for all those jokes about little men in dinner jackets. Smallest of all, the little blue or fairy penguin from Australia and New Zealand. It weighs about 1¼ pounds. And the giant 60-pound emperor, least accessible of all the species, and here, as rarely seen, with a chick. Most beautiful penguin? The title must surely go to the next largest in size after the emperor. The king penguin is distinguished by the brilliant orange colour of its head marking. It's somewhat similar in appearance to the emperor, though only half its weight, and its nesting habits are quite different. Emperors have the most remarkable breeding story of all. They lay their eggs in the endless night of the Antarctic winter. The males stand huddled together on the ice shelf, perhaps 60 miles from open water, in temperatures of below -40 degrees. Meantime, the females trek off to the sea to catch fish, miraculously arriving back at the moment the eggs hatch out. These kings, by contrast, nest in summer and in comparatively accessible places. This colony is in South Georgia. They brood their eggs and chicks on their feet under a bulge at the base of the stomach, a technique similar to that used by the male emperors in the howling, freezing night of Antarctic winter. Sheer size distinguishes the lone chinstrap from the kings, but with similar size species, the varied head markings help each to recognize the other. As individuals, penguins probably know one another best by sound. To our ears, penguin song is not a melodious noise. People are apt to think of penguins as primitive because their wings can't get them airborne. This is a freak, by the way, a white Adelie. In fact, penguins have very efficient wings. They're more rigid than those of other birds, but they have an aerofoil section exactly like an aircraft wing. Penguins fly very well indeed, but they fly underwater. See how they beat with both wings simultaneously. The tiny scale-like feathers reduce drag. The technique they use when flying underwater is very similar to that of their northern counterparts, the puffins and the guillemots. But of course, unlike penguins, puffins and guillemots can fly in air as well as water. Penguins use their webbed feet purely as a rudder. Their compact bodies and dense bones help keep them submerged. They weigh just less than the water they displace. They can dive to 60 or 70 feet and have been known to stay under for 6 minutes. Like all seabirds, penguins only come ashore at breeding time. The rest of the year they spend at sea, where food in the form of krill, squid and small fish is plentiful. Porpoising is a favorite way of traveling, though they move far faster when submerged. Porpoising enables them to breathe in and out while they're in the air. Magellans and their close relatives in South Africa, Peru and the Galapagos nest at the northerly end of the penguin's range. Unlike the Antarctic and subantarctic birds, they nest in burrows. You can't do that in the rocky or frozen lands of the far south. This is a Magellan colony, or rookery as it's called, in Patagonia. It's sometimes said that the reason penguins don't exist in the northern seas is that they couldn't compete with the large predators there, like grizzly and polar bears and Arctic foxes. But it isn't quite as simple as that. Penguins have plenty of competitors in the southern hemisphere. The armadillo isn't above stealing an egg or two. Yet penguins exposed to these threats continue to thrive and rear their young. This Magellan is denying her 2 well-grown chicks predigested food so that they have to struggle to get it, an education for the hardships of food gathering in later life. And of course, all penguin colonies are subject to continual raids by bird predators, gulls and skuas especially. The absence of large mammal predators just doesn't explain why penguins have kept to southern latitudes and have never colonized the Arctic. More likely to be the limiting factor is that penguins need water of a consistently chilly nature. Free as they are to voyage long distances in the open ocean, they evolved in the south, and have never been willing or able to cross the varied temperatures of the tropics to expand northwards. When it comes to predation by large mammals, the danger for penguins lies in the sea. These gentoos in the Falkland Islands have come down for a drink. The salt water is no problem to them. They have special glands in their heads to dispose of the salt. Their nervousness is due to something quite different. Sea lions, and further south in the Antarctic, leopard seals, regard a penguin as a rewarding snack and know just where to find it. If they stay together, they've got a chance of confusing the hunters by sheer numbers. But one gentoo ventures out alone. A brief flurry in the breakers, and the gentoo has gone. For penguins, safety very definitely lies in numbers. And as their increasing numbers show, the system is one that works. Individual losers are weeded out and become food for the skewers. In a moment, we'll be looking at the penguins who cope with apparently much tougher living conditions in the far south, but take it all in their waddling stride. Penguins have been around in the southern oceans for at least 45 million years. Fossils show that they weren't very much different from the birds we know today, though some prehistoric penguins were about 5 feet tall. During those 45 million years, they evolved some strange nesting habits. The little rockhopper penguin has devised a system that looks to us like sheer, unnecessary hard work, but it's obviously highly beneficial to the species. They nest on rocky islands as far apart as the Falklands and Tristan da Cunha, and as you can see, they do an awful lot of hopping. The reason for all this hopping is that they usually nest high up on a cliff. So, to reach their rookery, they have to scale the rocks. On such a rugged surface, the waddle used by other species just wouldn't work, so they hop instead. In fact, they hop so much that the rocky steps leading up to a rockhopper's colony are often worn smooth by hundreds of years pounding by penguin feet and claws. The sea lies 250 feet below the colony. When they've got chicks to feed, the adults often make 2 fishing trips a day, which means they must hop up and down 1,000 feet of rock daily. If only those stubby wings could carry this rockhopper down to the sea in one easy swoop. Entering the sea is no problem. The birds just dive off a rock. Coming ashore after a fishing trip is not quite so easy. The rockhoppers have regular landing places, invariably where the rocks shelve gradually into the surf. They time the landing skillfully on the lift of a wave. Some are lucky to make it at the first attempt. The trouble is, there's always another wave close behind. The rockhoppers are never discouraged and simply go back and start again. the ice and snow of the Antarctic. This is the setting in which most people expect to find all penguins. There are only two completely Antarctic species, the giant 60-pound emperor and the tiny Adelie. But a few species, like the gentoo, breed on the warmer islands, such as the Falklands, as well as on the Antarctic continent, though they never establish rookeries as far south as the Antarctic Circle. This colony is in the Antarctic Peninsula, the part of the continent that juts northward towards Cape Horn. No one is sure how the gentoo got its strange name. It's probably of Indian origin. One suggestion is that the Falkland Islanders, who first named it, thought the white headband looked like a turban. Gentoos quite often share their rookeries with their closest relatives, the Adelies and the chinstraps. That's a chinstrap in the background. The gentoos, the largest of the three, are the most placid. Chinstraps are inclined to be pugnacious and irritable. Gentoos lay 2 eggs and sometimes successfully rear both chicks. On the warmer islands to the north, they often make nests of grass and twigs. On the barren Antarctic continent, a slight hollow decorated with a few pebbles has to do. Growing penguin chicks take a lot of feeding, mainly on krill. But then the cold Antarctic waters abound in euphorsids, the scientific name for this shrimp-like creature. In fact, penguins are booming, and for a tragic reason. Since the slaughter of the Antarctic whales, there's been an even greater abundance of krill, and the penguins have benefited. This nearly fully grown youngster is chasing its parents for its share of the krill harvest. Penguins nest in the Antarctic summer, which lasts from about October to March. This, believe it or not, is a summer's day, the equivalent of a fairly wet June day in Britain. But young penguins are not at all worried by this kind of weather. Penguins are more densely covered with feathers than any other bird. A penguin's main problem is not how to keep warm, but how to remain cool. This day should present no particular problem. There's a southward point beyond which gentoos and chinstraps aren't prepared to nest. The Adelies, on the other hand, go right down onto the Antarctic mainland. Adelies spend the winter at sea, feeding along the edge of the pack ice. When the southern spring arrives in early October, they come ashore, returning to the rookery where they were born or where they last bred. Though the pairs don't winter or even return to the rookery together, Adelies usually find their mates of the previous year and are faithful to them. The Adelie, you could say, is the basic penguin, the little man in the frock coat, the cartoonist's joy. When the male arrives, he sets up a territory on which breeding success depends. They lay 2 eggs, though by no means all successfully rear 2 young. These chicks are nearly fully grown, but they still chase their parents to be fed. There's no shortage of predators on these southern nesting grounds. A parent gallantly defends her young against a whole gang of murderous skuas. By February, the brief Antarctic summer is drawing to a close. The adult adelies are free from the demands of defending territory and feeding young. The young penguins can now swim to feed themselves. It's time to forsake the ties of the land and find freedom in their natural element, the sea. Tobogganing is often the quickest way of reaching it. These are practically all young birds. You can pick them out by the fact that they have white rather than black chins. Once they've become independent and can swim and feed themselves, there's no longer any bond between parents and offspring. These young adelies will get their full adult plumage in their second year, but they won't breed until they're at least 3 and possibly 5. The last lap to the sea is the sort of ground that rockhopper penguins would cross in a few seconds. The adelies are more at home on snow and ice. In the end, they all make it. Their parents aren't nearly so lucky. After the rigors of the nesting season, they molt again, usually out on the ice. And since they can't swim during the molt, this means another period of fasting. They've already fasted once while hatching their eggs. But food is so plentiful in Antarctic waters that young and old will soon build up body weight and put on fat to withstand the winter. Winter is probably the best time of a penguin's life. So now the young set off on their sea life, porpoising with joyous, instinctive confidence. Some will fall victim to the fiercely predatory leopard seals, but on an ice floe, a seal is no danger. A penguin can move far faster. To human eyes, the penguin's environment is about as hostile as it's possible to imagine. But the penguin is a creature magnificently adapted to its environment. It's delightful, appealing, and successful. And for once, it's pleasant to report that it's doing very nicely, thank you.
Rockhopper penguins. It's not hard to see how they got their name. There are 5 species of penguin on the Falkland Islands, and Rockies, as they're called here, are the smallest, the most numerous, and, they say, the most aggressive. Although it was the conflict of 1982 that brought the Falklands to world attention, the animals here have always had a battle to fight. The battle for survival. For 6 months of the year, the rockhoppers are at sea. No one knows much about what they do there, but even during the breeding season when they're based on shore, they must return to the sea from time to time to find food, mostly squid and shrimps of one kind or another. In this, the Rockies are typical of many Falkland animals. Although they spend some part of their lives on land, they never cease to be dependent on the oceans on their doorstep. The vast, food-rich waters of the South Atlantic. A summer day in the Falklands. The islands are at the same latitude south of the equator as London is to the north, and the temperature is quite mild. Slightly cooler than ours in summer, slightly warmer in winter. But the wind is relentless. More than 700 islands, their land area only the size of Wales, their combined coastlines as long as Norway. It's a place for some remarkable animals, many of them more at home in the water than on land. This flightless steamer duck is found nowhere else in the world. Already the ducklings have learned the value of shelter. Although they can't fly, these steamers are well able to get around. By paddling violently with wings as well as feet, they speed along in a cloud of spray. The Falklands has no mammal predators on land, and here the ducks thrive. How do other animals deal with this strange lifestyle, equally at home on land and in the water? As the wind drops a little, a king cormorant struggles back with a beakful of nest material. Cormorants, too, are ocean-going birds and expert divers, feeding on the fish and crustaceans that sustain so many other creatures here. The colony is a mixed one, the cormorants living in close but peaceful proximity with nesting rockhoppers. The cormorants are the master builders. They have constructed these foot-high nest platforms of mud and peaty fibre and now are lining them with dry grass. But first there's a pause to dry out after the storm. The smell of ancient fish rises from the mud. To keep their plumage in good condition, rockies use oil from a special preen gland on their rump, and, as a consequence, the feathers around it are rather worn. Fetching nest material involves a long and arduous journey, so it's no wonder that there are fights over it when it arrives. It's much easier to pinch someone else's than to collect it yourself. Even easier to sneak in and steal material from an unattended nest. And king cormorants are champions at this. But they're beaten at their own game by the rockies. Some pairs don't just pinch the nest material, they take over the entire nest and spruce it up for their own use. By contrast, a custom-built rockhopper nest is a very poor affair. A few beakfuls of wet mud, a pebble or two, and there it is. The first days of December mark the arrival of the bull sea lions coming on shore to breed. When he hauls out, one of these huge males can weigh 1/3 of a ton. But throughout the 2 months breeding season, they take no food at all. Each bull sets up territory on the beach and waits for the females to arrive. Only the male has the thick, shaggy mane, which gives them their name of sea lion. He advertises his strength by rearing up his massive head and neck and roaring. Elephant seals too come on shore here to breed, but the adults have already dropped this year's pups earlier in the summer. Most of the seals on shore now are young animals, free from family responsibilities. Behind them, in the tussock grass, is a nest. The nest of one of the rarest birds of prey in the world, the striated caracara. Johnny Rook is its local name, and it's found in very few places other than the Falklands, and here only on outlying islands. These two birds, a mature female and a younger male, paired for the first time last year, but failed to rear young. This year, they already have eggs in the nest. The caracara breeding cycle is timed to coincide with that of the rockhoppers. Rockies are their chief prey, and soon they'll have chicks to feed. The colony on the cliff is chattering with activity. The male rockies have been at sea feeding up, while the females take first shift, incubating the eggs. Now they're returning to take over from their mates. Great skewers are constantly on the wing, ready to pounce on any egg that may get dislodged or left unguarded. They hover and maneuver in the wind with great agility. They even seem to fly backwards. But they have another strategy too. Unobtrusively, they settle all round the edge of the colony and wait their chance. If one creates a diversion, others nip in to seize an egg, but only if the penguins are looking the other way. Meanwhile, the airborne attack continues. A sudden pounce secures an egg, but it drops. Many penguin eggs can be lost this way. The odds are pretty evenly matched. The skewers are sharp-eyed, numerous, and fast on the wing. But though the rockhoppers are earthbound, they're tough, aggressive little birds, and they pack a vicious peck. Perhaps this is one way the cormorants benefit from their unlikely neighbours. But behind the rocks lurks a much greater danger. The caracara is intent on a kill. In a flash, it grabs a cormorant. The male first satisfies his own hunger. He will take the rest to his mate at the nest. Rockhoppers share their colonies with other birds as well as king cormorants. Each one of these dots is the nest of a black-browed albatross. Mollymawk is the local name. 3/4 of the world population nest on the Falklands' remoter islands. These gentle giants, with their 7 to 8 foot wingspan, spend half the year at sea, where they sail gracefully over the waves in search of squid and fish. But now, in early December, the mollymawks are back on their mud pillar nests. A pair will use the same nest year after year. Waddling among the albatrosses, the Rockies look incongruous, opposite extremes in the bird world, one might think. But here again, the species nest peacefully together. Albatrosses pair for life for good practical reasons. Bringing up chicks in this harsh environment needs a full contribution from both parents, and good teamwork pays off. This may well be a pair of many years standing, renewing their courtship for another breeding season. Even a successful pair will only produce one chick, and if that one fails, there can be no replacement that year. But that single chick gets all the care and attention that's going. This new chick is fed with a nutritious liquid pre-digested in its parent's stomach. The rockhopper nests in this mixed colony are very much at ground level. No doubt the surrounding high-rise nests of the albatrosses give them protection from skuas and other aerial predators. The mollymawks seem very tolerant of their small neighbours. But even so, there are some disadvantages of this sort of togetherness. Many mollymawk colonies are on high rocky ledges where the birds can simply launch off into the air. At sea level, it's more difficult. Here they use traditional runways, taking off into the prevailing wind, if they can. But once airborne, they're a joy to behold, gliding and circling in their true element. Many Falkland birds are birds of the open sea. Like the giant petrel, a champion ocean scavenger, dipping a wing tip in the waves as it looks for food. Like the albatrosses, giant petrels come on shore in early summer to nest. Return to the colony is greeted with heraldic posturing and throaty squawks. The braying call signals the presence of another of Falkland's penguins. It's correctly called the Magellanic penguin, but because of this donkey serenade, it's generally known as the jackass. Their nests are in underground burrows or beneath stools of tussock grass. The jackass's route to the sea is less precipitous than the rockhoppers, but today there may be danger for them too. Killer whales. A small pod, a family group probably, feeding inshore. Killers are commonly seen around the Falklands, perhaps in pursuit of prey like seals or dolphins, but they take penguins too. Killer whales hunt as a team. That's the secret of their success. One individual will round up potential prey and drive it into the jaws of the waiting group. They follow their victims right into the shallow water without fear of stranding. But at present, there's better feeding out in the bay. Not all animals come on shore either to breed or to feed. The breeding elephant seals dropped their pups here last October, and most have now returned to sea. But now there's a second invasion of younger animals, which have come ashore to molt. As the itchy patches of old skin flake off, the seals are attended by probably the cheekiest of all Falkland animals, the tussock bird. It seems they can reach the parts the seals themselves cannot reach. And it's not just scraps of skin the tussock birds are taking. These sharp little beaks seem to be extracting some sort of skin parasite. Perhaps they're maggots. Bluebottles are one of the less welcome settlers on the Falklands, accidentally introduced in the 18th century. It's said that these southern elephant seals have more flexible spines than their cousins in the northern hemisphere. But clearly not flexible enough to dislodge a tussock bird. In the nest above the beach, 2 chicks have hatched, caracara chicks. Only a day or 2 old, they still have the egg tooth with which they chip their way out of the shell. In comes the mother with food, a penguin chick. Rocky chicks are the principal diet of the young caracaras. The parent takes the body to the family larder to tear off a beakful suitable for her tiny chicks. This is a typical caracara nest site, sheltered in the tussock grass. Tussock is a remarkable plant. It can grow up to 10 feet, Falkland's nearest equivalent to a forest, and it's important to many sorts of wildlife. And like many Falkland animals, tussock needs the sea. It won't grow without salt spray blowing over it. Johnny rooks don't need the surrounding seas in the same direct way as penguins or sea lions, but they need them at second hand, so to speak. To breed in summer, to survive in winter, they depend on ocean-going animals for their food. The rockhoppers, too, have chicks in the nest, protected from the chilly winds under a fold of skin. This rocky has 2 chicks. That's unusual. Rockhoppers lay 2 eggs, but oddly the first egg is noticeably smaller than the second, and usually that first chick doesn't survive. This single chick is more typical. During the 1985-6 season, there was a sudden crash in the rockhopper population. Thousands of birds died. What was the cause? Biologists went into action to find out. Overfishing is a danger, but not to blame at present, they think. There is some heavy metal pollution, but again, probably not the cause. The rocky deaths were almost certainly due to natural causes. The cool South Atlantic currents were diverted for a time by abnormal winds, and as a result, rockies were deprived of the dense shoals of squid, which are their principal food. They simply starved to death. The currents and the squid have now returned to normal. In rocky nests all over the islands, parents are once again brooding healthy chicks. But penguin chicks come in different sizes. This one is 3 feet tall. It's a young king penguin. King penguins are the largest and most handsome of the island species, and this Falkland colony is the most northerly in the world. They have an unusual breeding cycle. They only breed twice over 3 years. In the first year, they may lay early in the season, in the second, late in the season, and in the third year, not at all. This adult has bred early and is incubating. Kings make no nest. The single egg, twice the size of a goose egg, is balanced on its feet, protected by a skin pouch. This huge chick must have been hatched towards the end of last season, say in February, and is now about 10 months old. This extended breeding cycle, one of the longest in the world, is connected with the length of time it takes to rear such a big chick. The downy feathers will protect it from the bitterly cold winds, but they're worse than useless in water. The chick will have to molt them and replace them with waterproof adult feathers before it goes to sea. As midsummer approaches, a bull sea lion is still waiting to claim a female. Another has already staked his claim. Female sea lions look quite different from males, gentle, golden-skinned, and less than half their weight. Females start to arrive on the beach shortly after the bulls and are claimed in open conflict. The contest is violent. Females are often tugged and torn by the teeth of their suitors. Each male will claim as many females as he can. The females are already pregnant when they arrive. The first pups are dropped around Christmas Day. Shortly afterwards, they mate again before heading for the open sea. The whole event takes no more than a few weeks. But several bulls are still without a harem. Late in the day, another summer storm starts to blow up. Many Rockies, females especially, are returning from their day's fishing. They must leap ashore and up this almost vertical precipice to return and feed their chicks. They take advantage of a particularly powerful wave to sweep them up the rock face. Those who succeed hang on with their sharp claws, but many get swept down again. These rockhopper landing pads have been in use for hundreds of years. Many are scarred by the marks of generations of tiny claws. Day after day, year after year, these small penguins, weighing no more than a few pounds, have been fighting their way ashore. Miraculously, the penguins are hardly ever injured in this perilous proceeding, nothing that a shake and a preen won't put right. Above the colony stands a reminder of the human conflict which took place on these islands. But the rockhopper colony is at peace. After a natural disaster, rockhopper numbers are gradually recovering. At present, Fortress Falkland is a fortress for penguins as well as for people. But the Falklands and its wildlife are beleaguered by many dangers. Some of them could be the result of its newfound prosperity. Pollution and over-exploitation of the oceans could be hazards. So could the wrong sort of interest in wildlife. The fortress needs our constant vigilance.